Today, the story I'm going to tell you is about the Hunt brothers. This family was originally from Illinois and rose to prominence in Texas. In the middle of the last century, their family discovered oil fields in Texas. There are a lot of oil fields and private oil wells near the University of Texas. They struck oil there and suddenly became very wealthy. So the elder Hunt, named Lafayette Harrison, well, he married three wives, house number one, house number two, and house number three, and had 15 children. All of them were raised quite well. Among them, two of the eldest children from the first wife, since the main inheritance went to the first wife's children. The sons from the first wife, the Hunt brothers, he was the son of the main branch. One was named Bunker, the other Herbert. The brothers, Bunker and Herbert Hunt, led the U.S. silver bull market that started in 1974. It was much more than today. Before they made their move, silver, as I told you, had always been around $1, about $1. Ever since World War II, it stayed around $1. By the time it got to 1974, the two of them kept buying, and they ended up purchasing 55 million ounces. 55 million ounces of silver ended up in the hands of the Hunt brothers. Because they were oil tycoons, they had the money. After buying 55 million ounces, the price of silver on COMEX rose from about $1.50 to $6. In other words, it went up from the $1 to $1.50 range before 1970 to 1974. $6 per ounce of silver. Remember these key figures. Then, the two of them started to get a bit carried away because they had made a huge amount of money from those 55 million ounces. The two of them were worried that the US government might play dirty and confiscate their silver, because back in the 1930s and 1940s, the US government had indeed played dirty before and confiscated everyone's gold. So back then, the US government confiscated all the gold owned by Americans. Any private individual holding gold in the US was breaking the law. That was the case before and after the war. So the Hunt brothers were worried their silver would be confiscated too. That's why they used their own planes, private jets, to transport load after load of silver to underground vaults in Zurich, Switzerland, in the Alps. They stored it in vaults and even hired the best gunmen from Texas to escort the shipments. 20 sharpshooters were chosen for the job. The Hunt brothers bought 55 million ounces of silver. The price of silver skyrocketed from $1.50 to $6. Although the Hunt brothers had become the richest men in America at that time, in that particular year, the richest American was from the Hunt family. But the Hunts felt that holding US dollars didn't seem very reliable. After all, America's national strength back then wasn't as strong as it would later become. In 1974, after the Vietnam War, the US was in turmoil, kind of like today, facing uncertainty again. So the Hunts decided to seriously buy up all the silver in the world and push silver to the price they believed it should be at. With gold fixed at $35 by the US government, he had to buy silver instead. Fearing a silver crackdown too, he shipped it to Switzerland. That was the plan. At that time, rumors spread worldwide that the Hunt brothers were going to take the silver market, and even the global silver market. So, what was the annual silver production in 1974? It was 245 million ounces. And what was the global annual demand for silver? The demand was 450 million ounces. Listen to these numbers. Now go ahead and use AI to check what today's global silver demand and production are. I'm telling you, it's exactly the same. Silver production cannot be expanded. Don't listen to those people who talk nonsense as if silver were iron ore or copper. It's extremely difficult to increase the production of gold and silver. Very difficult. There just isn't that much, and most of it is a byproduct. When you produce silver, you have to dig up a lot of copper. So it's either gold and silver as byproducts or silver and copper as byproducts. Basically, most silver comes from byproduct mining, so the annual production of silver has never been able to keep up with the yearly demand for silver, and that's the crux of the problem. So, the Hunt brothers decided to go after silver. You might ask, why didn't they go after gold? Let me tell you again, the Hunt brothers were smarter than me because they were America's richest family. The reason the Hunt brothers didn't go after gold was that the US government was playing dirty at the time. After the Bretton Woods system collapsed, the US government banned all Americans from buying gold. No matter if you were the richest person or not, it was illegal, so they had no choice but to settle for the next best thing. Got it? Alright, then people asked, if these two brothers were buying recklessly, how much gold does the US or the world have available for them to trade? I mean, they've already bought 5,500 ounces. How much can America provide? If they want to squeeze the market even more, can we supply them? How much do they have? Give it all to them. How much money do they have? You calculate it. That's 200 million ounces. Call it the max. Including all the private reserves in the US, there are only 200 million ounces. Damn, they've already bought 55 million ounces, and there are still 200 million ounces left. All right, now the situation is clear. It's already clear who will win and who will lose. The Hunt brothers can actually come up with that much money if the price is around $6. So the Hunt brothers flew to New York to rally support, to gather people together. In his urgency, Hunt gave a speech at COMEX. Hunt himself was basically like Elon Musk. In his speech, he basically said, almost anything in this world is more valuable than holding a $1 bill, even the dollar, referring to the little green bills, the greenbacks. In reality, anything is more valuable than that, more valuable, because even a Hunt can use a printing press. What he meant was that silver, gold, anything, even pots and pans, are more valuable. Everything is more valuable than this because they can just print this stuff recklessly. At that time, the US was indeed running a huge deficit. By March 1975, even the banks didn't have enough money because the price of silver started to drop again, just like it's being hammered down today. So what did the banks do? They kept asking for more margin. Yeah, they were using leverage too. That was a key reason for his downfall, and then he ran out of money. What do you do when you run out of money? He flew to Tehran to see the Shah of Iran at the time. Yes, that one. The Shah now wants to restore the currency, but back then it was his father. He went to see his father. It was before his father was overthrown that he went to see him. Others didn't have enough cash on hand. They went to the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and tried to team up with him, telling him stories. As long as we join forces to buy silver, come on. With the little bit of silver he had, how could they possibly buy enough to cause a short squeeze? That's what's called a short squeeze, forcing them to the point of jumping out the window. Ha 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 ha. And besides, silver wouldn't just be $6 anymore. We could push it up to $60 if we wanted. See, wouldn't Iran be rich then? Isn't this a great opportunity for us? The Shah of Iran understood right away, so he had his finance minister discuss the details with the Hunt brothers. That's normal, right? The finance minister would handle the details with them. The finance minister, an Iranian nobleman, asked Hunt directly, "How much did you make last year?" Hunt hesitated for a moment and said, "About $50 million. The finance minister immediately decided not to work with him. See, two key moments. What kind of cultural difference is this? First, he hesitated because there was no trust or familiarity between them. Ah, the fact that you hesitated shows you have a guilty conscience. And then you said $50 million. The Iranian finance minister thought he was probably exaggerating because he hesitated for a moment. Actually, that year he was the richest man in America. So if he only made $50 million, that couldn't be true. Why did he hesitate? Why did he say $50 million? Later, he wrote about it in his memoirs. He regretted it very much. Otherwise, he would have won a long time ago. Why is that? The main reason for his bankruptcy was a lack of gratitude. He didn't take old Wang to Dongguan. Later, in his memoirs, Banker recalled why he hesitated for a moment. He said, $50 million, damn, suddenly I thought of the IRS in the US. It was just that simple. He was afraid that if he said too much, the Americans would spread the word. Because if it got published in the newspapers and spread around, the IRS in the US would definitely come after him for taxes. In America. Because if you tell the king of Iran that you made $2 billion in a year, well, what about the taxes? That's why Banker hesitated for a moment. If he said he made $50 million, then the IRS would know and wouldn't come after him for back taxes. But then the Shah of Iran would look down on him for being so small time, like, damn, you've got a dead rat stuffed in your belt, pretending to be a hunter, and you come to my lavish palace in Tehran to talk business with me? Get lost. He got cursed out and kicked out just like that. Nothing he could do. It delayed things for him. But back then, Iran had a neighboring major country in the Middle East, also rich and oil rich, Saudi Arabia. Even today, Saudi Arabia and Iran are still rivals, just like they were back then. Saudi Arabia also had a king. Iran had a king too, the Pahlavi, but he was overthrown. But the king of Saudi Arabia was Faisal. Faisal was interested and took the initiative to reach out, saying, "Whatcha? Well, you can come to me. I have money too. Let's work together." The two of them agreed to sign the contract and get started in April 1975. See, sometimes things just don't go as planned. Man proposes, God disposes. On March 25th, 1975, just a week or two before the contract was to be signed, this was a sensational event at the time, a major incident that shook the world and impacted the global financial markets. People today might not know about it. After all, I was not even born yet back then. March 25th, 1975. The king was shot and killed by his schizophrenic nephew at a royal banquet. Just like that, he died so abruptly, so insignificantly. King Faisal of Saudi Arabia. King Faisal was originally a great king, but damn, he was just shot dead just like that. After he was killed, they pinned the blame together, but how could it be him? Damn, he was a wing. People wondered how he managed to bring a gun in, but there was nothing anyone could do, so the matter just passed. So as for King Khalid, he didn't even know him, and Vaid. The new king wasn't interested either, so Khalid was at a loss. Then they went to the east, saying they wanted to find Chairman Mao, but damn, Chairman Mao was too poor at that time, and besides, he was about to die. In 1975, Chairman Mao was either already dead or close to dying, so China was dirt poor, and they didn't go to China. Who did they go to? They went to the Philippines. The big dictator in the Philippines was called Marcos, not Musk, but Marcos, like Engels Marx. Marcos had the same name as Marx, older people all know this. And he had a really beautiful wife. What was her name? Imelda Marcos. When I was a kid, on China's news broadcasts, they always talked about Marcos. He was the dictator of the Philippines. A coup, the president above him. He was short on money, so what happened? The bank said, no problem, you don't need to have money, just put sugar. There are sugarcane plantations in the Philippines, right? You give them to me, and I'll give you 20 million ounces of silver. And then? Didn't I give you silver? You take the silver and go to Saudi Arabia, and you can directly exchange it for the oil and goods you urgently need. Meanwhile, I take your sugar refinery, and your sugar cane, and I can sell them for big money on the New York Mercantile Exchange. This way, everyone's happy. What is his real purpose? His real purpose is that he needs money. He knows Marx doesn't have money, but Marx has sugarcane, and sugarcane is as good as money. He wants to use 20 million taels of silver to exchange for sugarcane. If this move works, his liquidity will instantly return because he can make silver the world's major international trading currency. Previously, the major trading currency was the US dollar. Before 1975, it was the dollar. But with this move, doesn't it mean that silver can also be used as currency? Would they let him do that? Think about it. Who controls the US dollar? New York, of course. As soon as the International Monetary Fund saw this news, they immediately issued an ultimatum to Marcos. Philippines. If you go through with this, don't come to the IMF for aid or loans in the future. As a poor country, the Philippines had borrowed a lot of money from the International Monetary Fund, so Marcos didn't want to offend a whole river for the sake of a single city or a single scoop of water. That's why President Marcos broke the agreement, and as a result, the Hunt brothers' capital chain was about to break. It was just like today. Then the price of silver shot up. Didn't it just rise to $6 or $7? Then it dropped to $4. Doesn't that ratio look the same as today? From $6 down to $4, from $1.50 up to $6, then from $6 down to $4. You guys, you've never seen anything like this before. The price of silver hasn't gone up fourfold in this recent round, right? It went from $1.50 to $6. That's a fourfold increase. And then it dropped to $3, which is a drop by half. Pretty much. And then, is that the end of the story? A lot of people say the story is over, but it's not over. He wants revenge. He's going to force a short squeeze counter. He's going to force a short squeeze on Hunter. Just watch, that's going to happen in the spring. As the spring season passed by and the month of April arrived, Musk finally returned to his old hometown in Texas. He looked at Austin and Dallas. He took a look. Hey, why aren't there any soybeans planted in the vast American farmlands this year? Soybeans are the same as what we call dadu. That's what we use for soybean oil. The U.S. usually plants a huge amount. It's a major commodity. No soybeans planted, huh? If there's nothing planted, there'll be no harvest in the fall. With no harvest, COMEX still dares to keep trading soybeans there. Haha, now it's my turn for revenge. You guys messed with me. You old money crowd, you establishment, shadow government, deep state, all in on soybeans, buying up soybeans. After secretly calculating that soybean yields would definitely decrease in the fall once the spring planting was done, he saw that production kept increasing through the summer. Then, come fall, he suddenly revealed his hand and went all in on soybeans, making a massive purchase. Individually, American investors could only buy up to 3 million bushels of soybeans, bushels being a trading unit. The two brothers, along with their relatives, together bought a total of 22 million bushels, going all in for delivery. That year, even the entire United States couldn't produce 22 million bushels of soybeans, so the price of soybeans skyrocketed. Damn, they made a killing. At this point, they started playing dirty. That's exactly what's happening today with silver. Once I finish telling you about silver, you'll understand today's market situation. It's COMEX that's playing dirty now. COMEX is drawing the line today. So why didn't the Hunt brothers dare to draw the line back then? Why didn't they do it? Because the Hunts were also Americans, and they weren't that weak. So what did they do? They turned to the law. Now, even the ones playing dirty have to talk about the law. COMEX took the Hunt brothers to court. Why did they sue them, and on what grounds? Because each of them was only allowed to buy 6 million ounces, but they used a lot of proxies to buy 22 million ounces. That's considered illegal means, right? That's like using someone else's ID. Of course, the Hunts wouldn't accept that. The Hunts said, if this was the first time I'd done something like this, I'd admit it. Which of the old money families on the entire east coast of the United States, like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, haven't done the same thing? Why do they have to sue me in particular? But it doesn't matter. This time they got you. The lawsuit dragged on and on, just kept dragging. By the time autumn passed and the harvest was over, the verdict came out. The Hunt family won. After all, everyone else does the same thing, so they decided to just let it go, let it go. Isn't this just playing dirty? So, what happened next? Well, Hunt did the math, and because of this, the price went back up, right? But even so, the Hunt brothers still made $40 million. They didn't lose money. Of course, the billions in paper profits were all gone. They made $40 million, but from then on, a bitter feud was born.